My name is Migdalia Wynn, 30 years old. The lobby smelled like polished stone and money, marble floors so clean they held the city lights like a second sky. I stood between my father and my sister, their reflections crowding me in the brass pillars. Richard's voice cut through the hush like a knife wrapped in silk. "Stop pretending you can afford this, Migdalia." Heads turned. The concierge paused mid-keystroke. The doorman's smile faltered. The realtor's polite confidence bled into worry. It was the same public ritual as always. His certainty, my supposed place. Marissa tugged her designer bag higher, lips lifting into that small, unforgiving smile I grew up memorizing. "Honestly, Elle, you still can't keep your phone service half the time. Why are we wasting this man's afternoon?" She pitched her voice for the acoustics, for the echo, for the performance of big sister realism. I inhaled slow. Marble has a smell when it's cold. That's what I focused on. The mineral chill of it, the distant hum of an elevator, the way a chandelier caught noon like an expensive net. There were years when their words sent me spiraling. Freshman year, when the scholarship fell through. The night I moved into a studio the size of a walk-in closet. The time Dad said he was done paying for dreams that don't convert to payroll. A tiny flex in my jaw. Not today. The realtor, late 20s, careful haircut, pressed gray suit, shifted his clipboard, eyes ping-ponging between us. "Ms. Wynn, would you prefer we start with your penthouse or the second unit you purchased on—" Silence, like a glass dropped and caught just before the crash. My father blinked. His mouth opened, then stalled. Marissa's smirk slipped, then fell, an expression I'd never seen on her before, confusion unvarnished. The word "your" hung in the air and christened the moment. I met the realtor's gaze like we'd rehearsed this. "The penthouse," I said, voice soft enough to be kind, firm enough to be law. "It's more private." "Penthouse," Dad repeated, as if the syllables were foreign currency he didn't exchange. "What game is this?" His laugh was too sharp, a blade made dull by overuse. "You didn't finish your degree. You quit 3 jobs in a year. I built a company," I said, not loudly, but with gravity. "More than one, technically." A breath. I learned to stop apologizing for the shape of my path. Marissa swallowed, throat tight enough to be heard. "Since when?" Pure disbelief, glued with something stickier, fear that the family mirror had rotated and she didn't like the angle. The concierge glanced down, suddenly fascinated by the ledger. The doorman became air. The elevator chimed. The gold doors parted with a clean whisper. I stepped in first. The mirrored walls caught all 3 of us at once. Richard, tall and appointed, eyebrows carved into doubt. Marissa, curated, mascara perfect, a tremor in her mouth. Me, hair pulled back, the steadiness I worked for wearing me back. "Coming?" I asked, like this were any other tour, like we were any other family. They entered. The doors slid shut. The lobby's eyes disappeared. In the close quiet, machinery hummed. I remembered a different elevator. The freight lift in a warehouse where I'd stitched together a first office with borrowed furniture and goodwill. I taught myself to code at 2 a.m., to pitch at noon, to swallow humiliation like aspirin and get back to work. Success doesn't start with confetti. It starts with a body that keeps moving after no. I didn't say any of that. The numbers were written somewhere Dad respected more than feelings, in contracts and tax returns, and the quiet of a team that trusted me. "You're bluffing," Richard said finally. "Your tricks don't play here." The elevator opened. Sunlight rushed in like a verdict. We stepped into a cathedral of glass. The city stretched itself to the horizon, silver and steel, river carving light into ribbons. The floors were pale stone veined with smoke. A private garden waited up the spiral stair like an invitation. Air felt different this high up. Cooler, thinner, as if I'd climbed out of a version of myself and left her downstairs. Marissa's phone dipped in her hand. "This is yours?" The tremor she'd spent years training out of her voice came back as a question mark. "Yes." I placed my fingertips on the kitchen island's edge, grounded by the cool slab of it. "I closed last year." Dad's shoes clicked once, twice, then stopped. He surveyed the place like a battlefield he didn't prepare for. "How?" It wasn't a taunt anymore. It was a rattle in his foundation. Without your money?" I offered, not unkind. "Correct." He tried for the old tone, a scoff, A dismissive lift of the chin. It failed. He looked past me, out to the skyline, as if the city could translate this new language. We were hard on you to wake you up. You were hard on me because you couldn't imagine me winning, I said, the truth arriving the way cold arrives. First a nip, then a full-body fact. You made a story and never checked the ending. The realtor, who'd retreated discreetly to the door, cleared his throat back into existence. As noted, Mr. Wynn, this residence includes a private elevator, a rooftop garden, and a wraparound view. Ms. Wynn also owns the adjoining suite, currently being converted into a studio. He hesitated, then added, She's renovating sustainably. Gray water systems, passive cooling. The flit of pride there made something warm move through my ribs. Marissa blinked. You have another unit? She said it like second son. 2 studios, I said, here and in Los Angeles. I kept my tone quiet, ordinary. Not for their benefit, for mine. I'd vowed not to let triumph turn me into the thing I'd survived. Dad's mouth worked around a reply and came up empty. He glanced again at the view, the way men do when they're looking for an exit that isn't a door. All this, he managed finally, to prove a point. Not to you. I brushed a phantom speck of dust from the counter, a small, precise gesture that steadied me. To myself. He flinched like the words had weight. His jaw flexed. In his eyes, a flicker of something I hadn't let myself want too much. Reluctant pride, misfiled as irritation. The most dangerous thing about approval withheld is the way it can bait you into chasing it forever. I'd already chosen not to run. The realtor slid the balcony door open. Air spilled in clean and bright. The city sounded like a long exhale. Would you like to see the terrace, Ms. Wynn? He asked. I stepped out. The railing was cool under my palms. Traffic far below braided itself into a single metallic river. The wind threaded through my hair with quiet fingers. I remembered every hour I couldn't afford heat, every cheap coffee drank for courage, every laugh behind my back I forced myself not to collect. I wasn't here because they were wrong. I was here because I refused to stop. Marissa came to stand beside me, close but not touching. I used to picture you coming back home, she said, voice small and honest in a way that unsettled us both, needing us. I needed you, I said, still looking at the skyline, but not like that. In the glass, my father hovered behind us, shoulders not as square as they used to be. His voice, when it arrived, was lower. You really did this yourself? The answer wore years. Every contract, every payroll, every night I traded sleep for a shot at morning. I turned to him. You never asked. Something in his face softened, a line redrawn. I thought tough love protected you. It protected you from watching me fail, I said. It protected your idea of me. We stood there with the city in our mouths, steel and light and the taste of truths too long deferred. The performance was over. Nobody applauded. It felt better that way. I think we're done with the tour, I said to the realtor, who nodded with grateful relief. Please send the renewal packet to my assistant. Marissa's head snapped slightly. Assistant? Claire, I said. She runs the calendar I used to dream of needing. I let a small smile happen and didn't apologize for it. The elevator doors closed them in again, and for a heartbeat, I saw my childhood pressed into the mirrored paneling. My father's certainty, my sister's audience, my smallness. The reflection dissolved with the floor numbers blinking down. I was left with the hush a building holds when no one is performing inside it. When the door chimed again, Dad lingered, eyes on the city, then on me. I was wrong, he said, as if the words cost a currency he wasn't used to spending. The admission landed, but didn't explode. Maybe, I said gently, we were all wrong about each other. His throat moved. He nodded once, a man learning how to carry a lighter version of himself. After they left, the penthouse breathed. Quiet systems humming, light inching across stone. I stood barefoot on the terrace and let the wind choose its path. Peace doesn't taste like champagne. It tastes like clean air after rain. Like unremarkable coffee made exactly how you like it, like hearing your own voice in a room and recognizing it. Behind that calm, something else flickered. An old house on a smaller street. A front step where my mother once tied my shoelaces, the shape of a promise I had forgotten. The thought passed like a shadow of a bird across glass, brief but undeniable. I didn't chase it. Not yet. From this height, the city looked orderly. I knew better. Down there, everything collides. Up here, I could finally choose what to keep. I pressed a palm to the cool glass and caught my reflection, not as a victory lap, but as proof. A life I'd built was looking back, steady, unhurried, unspectacular, in the best way, mine. Success, I realized, isn't a shout. It's a door you unlock quietly, step through, and close softly behind you. Morning sunlight cut through the skyline like gold poured into glass. I hadn't slept, not from nerves, just the kind of stillness that comes after a long war ends and your body hasn't caught up with the peace. The penthouse was silent, except for the hum of the city far below. I made coffee the way I always had. Cheap beans, black, the bitterness grounding. Funny how luxury still tastes ordinary when it's real. The elevator pinged softly, and I already knew who it was. My father never texted before showing up. Control was his preferred language. He stepped out slowly, shoulders square, but energy uncertain, like a man walking into a courtroom he no longer ruled. Migdalia, he said, testing my name like it might break. Dad. I didn't move to hug him. We stood separated by a gulf of air that used to be trust. He looked around, the same way people do when they're trying not to admit awe. It's beautiful, he said quietly. You really did all this yourself? Yes, I said simply, turning toward the window. Every contract signed, every investor meeting, every night I didn't eat so I could pay my staff. His jaw tightened. I never meant to hurt you. I just thought that I'd fail without you? I finished for him, my tone calm but heavy. You told everyone at that Christmas dinner that I'd come crawling back. Remember? He flinched. That was years ago. Words don't expire, I said. They stay, especially when they come from someone you once believed in. Silence spread between us like a storm cloud. He rubbed the back of his neck, the same gesture he used to make when Mom was still alive, and he didn't know how to apologize. I was hard on you because I thought it would protect you, he said finally. No, I replied, turning to face him. You were hard on me because you couldn't imagine me surviving without you. He swallowed. His voice cracked just slightly. You're right. For the first time, the words didn't feel like victory. They felt like loss. Years of pride burned away into something smaller, something honest. He stepped closer, hesitant. I'm proud of you, he said quietly. I just didn't know how to say it without feeling like I was admitting defeat. I let that sink in. It's not a defeat to see someone you raised stand tall, I said. It's proof you did something right once. His eyes glistened, but he didn't wipe them. That was progress. We sat at the counter. For the first time in years, the silence between us wasn't heavy. It was searching. He looked down at his hands. I thought money would keep this family together. Turns out it only bought noise. I said nothing. The city outside spoke for us. Distant horns, fragments of laughter, the pulse of life moving forward. He finally stood, adjusting his jacket. I should go. You don't have to, I said softly. But if you do, at least know this. I stopped building my life around your permission the day you stopped believing I could. He nodded slowly, the truth stinging and healing at once. You sound like your mother, he murmured. She used to say the same thing. At the mention of her, something inside me cracked open. She would have loved this place, I whispered. She would have told me to stop being a fool, he replied, and for the first time, he smiled. It wasn't pride or control, it was something gentler, regret with edges softened by time. As he stepped towards the elevator, he hesitated. You built something extraordinary, Migdalia. Don't let anyone, especially me, make you feel small again. When the doors closed, I stood there, staring at my reflection in the mirrored glass. The girl who once begged for approval was gone. What remained was a woman who built her own peace from the rubble of other people's expectations. The phone buzzed on the counter, shattering the quiet. A message lit up the screen. Marissa, I need to see you, alone. I frowned, reading it twice. No snide tone, no mockery, just plain words, unstyled and human. A chill passed through me. My sister didn't reach out unless she wanted something. But this felt different. I texted back one word, tomorrow. Setting the phone down, I walked to the balcony. Below me, the city glowed, streets weaving like veins, cars pulsing like blood. The same city that once ignored me now mirrored my light back. Yet something in me knew this wasn't over. My father's apology was one truth, but my sister's silence, her sudden vulnerability, felt like the next chapter waiting to be opened. And somewhere, deep beneath the skyline's shimmer, I could almost hear the echo of my mother's voice. Family doesn't end when you walk away, Migdalia. It waits. Sometimes it waits for forgiveness. The wind shifted, carrying the scent of rain. I closed my eyes and let it brush across my face. Tomorrow was coming, and with it, answers I wasn't sure I wanted. The next morning arrived, dressed in silver rain and quiet tension. The city looked washed clean, as if preparing for a confession. I'd barely touched my coffee when the elevator chimed. Marissa stood there, no makeup, no heels, just a pale sweatshirt and the kind of face you only wear when you've cried before knocking. "Migdalia," she said softly. Her voice carried none of its usual armor. "Can I come in?" I nodded, stepping aside. The air between us was thick with everything unsaid. She walked in slowly, scanning the penthouse as if afraid to touch anything. Her usual perfume, something sharp and expensive, was replaced by rain and nerves. "It's beautiful," she murmured, her voice small. "All of it. You made this happen." "I did," I said simply. For a moment she said nothing, just stood by the window, tracing a raindrop down the glass with her finger. "I don't even know where to start." "Try the truth," I said. That pulled her gaze back to me, wet and guilty. "I owe you an apology." I exhaled slowly, motioning toward the counter. "You don't owe me anything, Marissa." "Yes, I do." She sat down, hands trembling slightly around the cup I poured for her. "I was awful to you. Cruel, even. I laughed when Dad tore you down. I said things that—" her voice broke. "Things I can't even believe came out of my mouth. I wanted to make you feel small, because I couldn't stand the idea that you might be braver than me." I froze, her words slicing through years of noise. She kept going, eyes fixed on her hands. "When you dropped out, I told Dad it was for the best. I said you were wasting everyone's money. I even convinced him to cut your funding early. I thought it would make you learn responsibility." Her voice fell to a whisper. "I just wanted to be the daughter he chose." The words hit harder than any insult. For a long moment, the only sound was the rain against glass. I finally spoke quietly. "You told him to stop paying my tuition?" She nodded. "Yes, I was jealous. You had something I didn't. The courage to walk away. I didn't know how to live without his approval, so I tried to break you instead." The confession sat heavy between us. I wanted to be angry, to throw something, to remind her what those years had cost me, but I just couldn't. The tears that should have come years ago were long dry. I leaned on the counter. "You were supposed to be my sister, Marissa, not another voice telling me I wasn't enough." "I know." She met my eyes for the first time. "And I'll regret it for the rest of my life." Something cracked open in me then. Not forgiveness, not yet, but understanding. The same pressure that broke me had bent her into someone she didn't want to be. I let out a slow breath. "I didn't build this to prove you wrong, you know." "Then why?" she asked, voice barely audible. "To prove that I wasn't who you all said I was." She nodded, tears sliding silently down her cheeks. "And now that you have it, what do you feel?" I looked toward the skyline, where the storm was breaking open into threads of light. Free. That word lingered in the air, fragile and true. For the first time in years, she smiled. Not the glossy, social smile that came with cameras or cocktails, just a real tired human one. "You're stronger than any of us ever gave you credit for," she said quietly. I laughed softly. "Took you long enough to notice." We both laughed then, awkward, halting, but real. The kind of laugh that sounds like something healing. Her face sobered again. "Dad told me he's selling the old house." My chest tightened. "The one on Hawthorne Street?" She nodded. "Said it feels empty now. Too many ghosts." The old house. The smell of cinnamon from Mom's kitchen. The way sunlight used to fall through the lace curtains in the den. The creak of the third stair that always gave me away. That house held the last version of us that felt like love. "Maybe it's time," I said softly, though the words hurt coming out. "He regrets everything, Migdalia," she whispered. "He told me he wishes he could take it all back." I turned away, blinking hard against the sting behind my eyes. "Regret doesn't rewrite history." "No," she said gently, "but maybe it starts a new one." Her words lingered. The rain had stopped, and a thin stripe of sunlight fell across the marble floor like a bridge. I walked to the balcony, leaning against the railing where I'd stood with Dad the night before. "Do you know what the hardest part was, Marissa?" She shook her head. "It wasn't the hunger, or the nights I thought I'd never make rent. It was realizing that my own family, people I loved, saw me as a joke. That kind of loneliness doesn't fade." Marissa's voice trembled. I know, and I'll spend every day trying to make it right. Something softened inside me then. I reached out, resting a hand on her shoulder. Then that's enough. We stood together, quiet, the skyline glowing in gold and gray. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was the start of something that might become it. After a while, she took a deep breath. There's something else I have to tell you. I turned. What is it? She hesitated, looking down at her cup. The old house. It's not just property. Dad said Mom left it in her trust. For you. But he didn't tell you because he thought you'd waste it on your dreams. The words landed like thunder in my chest. For me? I asked. She nodded. He said she wanted it to go to you once you proved you could build something on your own. I think that time has come. I gripped the railing, the city spinning quietly below. Suddenly, all the pieces began to shift. The fight, the pride, the years of silence. It wasn't just a home anymore. It was her final message. I whispered, almost to myself, Mom always believed in timing. Marissa smiled faintly. Then maybe this is hers. The light broke fully then, spilling warmth across the skyline. I looked at my sister and saw not the rival I'd fought for approval, but the child who once held my hand in thunderstorms. Maybe it's time we both go home, I said softly. The morning after Marissa's visit, the city woke under a quiet blue sky. The rain had washed away the night, and for the first time in a long time, everything outside my window looked still. I stood by the counter, coffee steaming between my hands, when the elevator chimed again. It was him. Dad stepped out slowly, holding his hat in his hands, a gesture I'd never seen from him before. He looked older, not in years, but in weight, as if regret had aged him faster than time. Migdalia, he said softly, your sister told me you knew about the house. I nodded. She told me everything. He exhaled, a long sound that carried years of pride and denial. I wanted to tell you myself, but... You thought I hadn't earned it yet, I finished for him. His gaze dropped. Your mother left it for you, he said quietly. She made me promise I'd keep it safe until you found your way. I told her you didn't need protecting. You needed a wake-up call. He paused, his voice breaking a little. But she saw something I didn't. She believed in you when I couldn't. I swallowed hard. The weight of her absence filled the room. She always did, I said softly. He nodded. The trust becomes yours officially next month. The house, everything inside it. I thought you should know before the lawyers do. For a moment, the words didn't feel real. That house, our old life, her laughter in the kitchen, the smell of thyme and lemon polish. It all came rushing back, not as a reward, but as a memory finally coming home. I don't need it, I said after a long pause, but I want to see it, one last time. He looked up then, relief flickering across his face. I'd like that, he said. We drove there together that afternoon. The old house on Hawthorne Street hadn't changed much. White shutters, weathered gray, ivy curling around the porch rails, the same wind chimes that used to sing us to sleep. The door groaned when it opened, and 1,000 ghosts of laughter drifted out. I stepped inside first. The air smelled faintly of cedar and thyme. Dust lay soft on the banister, but sunlight still found its way through the lace curtains, painting gold stripes across the floorboards. Dad stood behind me, quiet, his hands folded like a man in church. She loved this place, Thies, he murmured. Wouldn't let me sell it, no matter how tight things got. I traced my fingers along the doorway. She said walls remember people who love inside them. He gave a small nod. Your mother was always better with words than I was. We wandered through the rooms, her old sewing table by the window, the chipped teacup on the sill, the family photo still hanging crooked in the hall. My throat tightened when I saw it. Mom standing between us, her hands on our shoulders, her smile caught mid-laughter. She'd be proud of you, he said behind me. I turned. Would she? Yes. His eyes met mine, steady now. You built something from nothing. And you did it without hate. I couldn't see it before, but I do now. I didn't answer right away. The house creaked softly, like it was listening. Then I said, you know what I realized, Dad? The real revenge was never proving you wrong. It was proving that I could still love this family, even after everything. His mouth trembled, the corners folding in. I don't deserve that kind of grace. Maybe not, I said, but Mom would have wanted me to give it anyway. He took a slow, unsteady breath. Then, for the first time in my adult life, he opened his arms. The gesture was hesitant, almost shy. I stepped into it. It wasn't the kind of embrace that erases history, but the kind that admits it happened and chooses to move forward anyway. When we pulled apart, he looked around one last time. This house belongs to you now, Migdalia, but if you ever want to share it, I'd like to visit sometimes. I smiled faintly. You're welcome here, as long as you come with respect. He nodded, a small laugh breaking through his tears. Fair enough. Later, we sat on the old front steps, watching the sunlight filter through the maple trees. Marissa joined us, her hair pulled back, eyes soft. She handed me a paper bag of pastries from the bakery down the street, the one Mom used to love. I thought we could start new, she said quietly. I took one, breaking it in half. We already have. We sat there in silence, three people who'd finally stopped performing for each other, just existing in the simplicity of afternoon light and forgiveness. When the breeze picked up, it carried the faint scent of apple pie and rain, the two smells I always associated with my mother. It wrapped around us like a blessing. That evening, back in the penthouse, I stood by the window again. The skyline glittered like 1,000 small promises. Below, the city pulsed with stories. People trying, failing, rebuilding. I thought about everything that had brought me here, the humiliation, the hunger, the grit, the silence, and how each wound had taught me something pride never could. Sometimes success isn't loud. It's a whisper that says, you made it through. I stepped out onto the balcony, the wind curling through my hair. You were right, Mom, I whispered to the night. Timing is everything. The lights of the city shimmered in reply, soft and endless. Because in the end, the sweetest revenge isn't proving them wrong. It's proving yourself right, quietly, gracefully, and without needing anyone's permission.